You think saving more money is the smartest financial move you can make right now. That belief feels responsible, disciplined, like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, but I'm going to tell you something uncomfortable. For many of you, that conviction is exactly what's keeping you stuck financially. Because saving without intelligent allocation slowly erodes purchasing power and opportunity in ways you don't recognize until years have passed and you realize you are further behind than when you started. In this video, I'll unpack the actual logic behind capital, risk, and why money needs direction and purpose, not just storage. So you can stop playing pure defense with your finances and start positioning for genuine wealth accumulation. Most people have been taught that saving money is inherently virtuous, that accumulating cash in a savings account represents financial responsibility and security. Your parents probably told you this. Financial literacy courses emphasize it. Society treats high savings rates as evidence of discipline and wisdom. This feels so obviously correct that questioning it seems almost reckless. But I built my career on questioning assumptions that everyone else accepts without examination. And I'm telling you directly, if you're in your 20s, 30s, or early 40s with savings under $50,000 and your primary financial strategy is to save more in cash or standard savings accounts, you're very likely making yourself poorer over time, not richer. Why are you so confident that holding cash represents security? What if the very thing that feels safe is systematically destroying your ability to build wealth? What if the stability you think you're creating is actually an illusion that's costing you more than you realize? The stakes here are substantial. I've watched entire generations misunderstand the relationship between saving and wealth creation, convinced they're being prudent when they're actually falling behind. They save diligently for years, feel virtuous about their growing account balance, then discover at 40 or 45 that their purchasing power has eroded, that they're no closer to financial independence than they were a decade earlier, and that they've missed critical years when their capital could have been compounding. This isn't a minor miscalculation, it's a fundamental misunderstanding about how capital actually works that can cost you decades of potential wealth accumulation. I didn't build wealth by being the smartest person in markets or by having access to information others didn't have. I built it by recognizing when conventional wisdom was leading people in the wrong direction, by understanding the difference between feeling safe and actually building security, and by accepting that real financial progress requires taking calculated risks rather than avoiding all risk. What I'm offering you today isn't investment advice about specific assets or guaranteed returns. It's a framework for understanding why saving without allocation is a losing strategy and how to think about capital in ways that actually build wealth rather than just creating the illusion of security. Let me start by dismantling the fundamental assumption most people make about saving money. You've been taught that cash in a savings account is safe, that it preserves your wealth, that having accessible money provides security against uncertainty. This sounds perfectly logical, but it's based on a critical misunderstanding about what wealth actually is and how it behaves over time. Wealth isn't measured in nominal currency units, it's measured in purchasing power, in what those currency units can actually command in terms of goods, services, and assets. When you save $10,000 in a standard savings account, earning minimal interest, you are not preserving $10,000 of wealth. You're holding a claim on currency that's declining in real value every single year through inflation and opportunity cost. Let's be specific about the mathematics. If inflation runs at 3% annually, and over the past several years it's been substantially higher, your $10,000 loses $300 of purchasing power in the first year. The nominal number stays the same or grows slightly with minimal interest, but what that money can actually buy decreases. Over 10 years, at 3% inflation, your $10,000 has the purchasing power of roughly $7,400 in today's terms. You didn't spend the money, you saved it diligently, and you became materially poorer by holding it in cash. Now consider what happened to someone who took that same $10,000 and allocated it intelligently into assets that could appreciate: stocks, real estate, even their own education or business. Assuming even modest 7% average annual returns, which is below long-term stock market averages, that $10,000 becomes nearly $20,000 over the same 10-year period. The difference isn't just the nominal return, it's the compounding effect and the fact that you owned assets that participated in economic growth rather than currency that was guaranteed to lose purchasing power. Here's the reflexive element that most people miss. When you hold excess cash, you're making an active investment decision, not a neutral one. You're betting that cash will preserve value better than alternative uses of that capital. During periods of stable low inflation, that might occasionally be correct, but over the long time horizons relevant to wealth building 10, 20, 30 years, it's almost always wrong. The purchasing power erosion is systematic and predictable. You're choosing to become poorer in real terms because it feels safer than accepting the uncertainty of investment. I learned this lesson early in my own life, though not through wealth building, through economic displacement. I grew up in Hungary during a period of hyperinflation. I watched savings become worthless almost overnight as currency lost its value faster than anyone imagined possible. This taught me something fundamental. Nominal currency isn't wealth. It's a medium of exchange whose value depends entirely on underlying economic conditions and policy decisions you don't control. Real wealth lies in owning productive assets, in having claims on actual economic output, rather than pieces of paper whose value can evaporate. Now, you might be thinking, but I need cash for emergencies. I need liquidity for unexpected expenses. Putting everything into investments feels risky. This is where most people conflate legitimate short-term liquidity needs with long-term wealth-building strategy. Yes, you need some accessible cash for genuine emergencies. 3 to 6 months of expenses is a reasonable buffer. But if you have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 sitting in savings accounts, earning essentially nothing, you're not being prudent. You're being systematically impoverished by your own caution. Here's what becomes possible when you understand this. You stop treating all saving as inherently virtuous and start asking much harder questions. How much cash do I genuinely need for realistic short-term contingencies? What's the opportunity cost of holding more than that amount in non-productive form? What could this capital potentially become if allocated into assets that participate in economic growth? You begin to see that real financial security doesn't come from holding large cash balances. It comes from owning assets that generate returns and compound over time. The challenge isn't to abandon all cash or to recklessly invest money you might need next month. It's to recognize that excess savings beyond legitimate short-term needs are actually eroding your wealth, and that real financial progress requires accepting the uncertainty of investment rather than the false certainty of nominal cash balances that lose purchasing power predictably and systematically. The second major problem with pure saving strategies is that they fundamentally misunderstand how wealth actually gets created in market economies. Most people think about wealth building linearly. If I save X dollars per month for Y years, I'll have accumulated Z dollars. This arithmetic is correct as far as it goes. But it completely misses the exponential dynamics of compounding and capital appreciation that separate those who build substantial wealth from those who just accumulate currency. When you save money in cash, you're engaged in addition. You add your monthly savings to your previous balance. The growth is linear and predictable. You can calculate exactly what you'll have in 5 years based on how much you're setting aside. This feels safe and controllable, but linear addition is not how significant wealth gets built. Wealth gets built through compounding, through earning returns on your returns, through assets that appreciate and generate income that gets reinvested to generate more appreciation and income. Let me give you a concrete illustration. Imagine two people, both saving $500 per month. Person A puts it into a savings account earning 1% interest. Person B invests it into a diversified portfolio of stocks, earning an average 8% annually, which is reasonable based on long-term historical returns. After 10 years, person A has accumulated about $62,000. Person B has accumulated about $91,000. After 20 years, person A has about $132,000. Person B has about $294,000. After 30 years, roughly a working career, person A has $210,000. Person B has $745,000. Same monthly savings, same discipline, but person B has more than 3 times the wealth because they understood that money needs to work, that capital has to be allocated into productive uses that generate returns. The difference isn't small or marginal, it's the difference between modest savings and genuine financial independence. And it compounds over time, meaning the longer you hold to a pure saving strategy, the further behind you fall. Now, I anticipate your objection, but stock markets are risky. Person B could lose money in a crash. Person A has guaranteed principal. This is where we need to talk honestly about risk, because most people have been taught to think about it in precisely the wrong way. They think cash is safe and investments are risky. But over the time horizons relevant to wealth building, this is backward. The real risk isn't short-term volatility, it's the near certainty that your purchasing power will erode if you hold cash over decades. Yes, stock markets have downturns, sometimes severe ones. I've lived through many of them, but over 10, 20, 30-year periods, markets have consistently generated positive real returns that far exceed inflation. The so-called safe strategy of holding cash has a 100% probability of losing purchasing power over those same periods. Which strategy is actually riskier over the time horizon that matters for building wealth? This is a reflexive dynamic that traps people. They avoid investment risk to feel safe. which creates the certainty of purchasing power loss, which means they need to save even more to compensate, which creates more cash sitting idle, losing value, which makes them feel like they need to be even more conservative, which perpetuates the cycle. The attempt to achieve security through pure saving actually undermines security by guaranteeing real wealth erosion. I've watched this trap countless young people over decades. They're in their 20s and 30s, the years when time and compounding are most powerful, and they're holding substantial cash because it feels responsible. They watch their account balance grow nominally and feel like they're making progress. Meanwhile, asset prices are appreciating, other people's invested capital is compounding, and by the time they realize their mistake in their 40s, they've lost the most valuable resource for wealth building, time. You cannot get those years back. The compounding you miss in your 20s and 30s cannot be made up by saving more aggressively in your 40s and 50s. Here's the reframing that changes everything. Saving is not wealth building. Saving is temporarily setting aside consumption to create capital that can be allocated. The actual wealth building happens in the allocation, in putting that capital to work in productive assets that can appreciate and generate returns. If you stop at the saving step without the allocation step, you're like a farmer who carefully collects seeds but never plants them. The seeds themselves aren't valuable. Their potential is only realized through planting and cultivation. This doesn't mean you should invest recklessly or put money you need next month into volatile assets. It means recognizing that cash beyond your short-term liquidity needs is capital that should be working for you, and that holding excess cash is an active decision to accept certain purchasing power loss rather than uncertain but statistically favorable returns from investment. Once you see this clearly, the decision framework changes completely. The question isn't, should I risk my savings by investing? It's, can I afford to guarantee losing purchasing power by not investing? The third fundamental problem with pure saving strategies is that they completely ignore the asymmetric opportunities that become available when you have invested capital rather than idle cash. This is something I learned not from textbooks, but from direct experience in markets over 6 decades. Capital that's actively allocated into assets creates opportunities and options that cash sitting in savings accounts simply cannot access. When you hold cash, your options are extremely limited. You can spend it or continue holding it. That's essentially the complete set of possibilities. But when you own actual assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, productive investments, you have access to a much richer set of opportunities. You can use appreciated assets as collateral. You can harvest tax losses to offset gains. You can benefit from dividends, rent, or other cash flows while maintaining ownership. You can participate in corporate actions, mergers, reorganizations. Most importantly, you have the option to hold through volatility and benefit from eventual recovery and growth. Let me explain why this asymmetry matters. During the 2020 COVID panic, markets fell sharply and rapidly. People holding cash felt vindicated they hadn't lost anything nominally. But they also couldn't do anything with that apparent safety. They couldn't buy assets at temporarily depressed prices because they were still afraid of further declines. They couldn't benefit from the sharp recovery that followed because they'd never been invested. Meanwhile, People who had capital already allocated in diversified portfolios had something much more valuable. They had the option to hold through the volatility, to rebalance opportunistically, and to participate fully in the recovery that saw markets reach new highs within months. This pattern repeats constantly. In 2008, in 2011, in 2015, in 2018, every time markets experience significant volatility, people holding cash think they're being smart by staying safe, but they're actually in the worst possible position, too paralyzed by fear to invest at attractive prices, unable to participate in recoveries, watching from the sidelines as invested capital compounds while their cash loses purchasing power. The feeling of safety is actually a trap that prevents them from building wealth. Here's something I learned through painful experience. The times when investment feels most risky are often the times when long-term expected returns are highest. When everyone is afraid, when markets are volatile, when the news is uniformly negative, these are precisely the conditions that create attractive valuations and asymmetric return opportunities. But you can only benefit from these opportunities if you have capital already allocated and the psychological fortitude to hold or add to positions when it feels most uncomfortable. People saving in cash convince themselves they're waiting for the right moment to invest, for conditions to feel safer or more predictable. But this right moment never arrives with certainty. By the time conditions feel safe enough to invest confidently, valuations have already adjusted and much of the opportunity has passed. The reflexive dynamic works like this. Fear keeps cash on the sidelines, which makes the investor miss the recovery, which makes them wait even longer for a better entry point, which means they miss more appreciation, which makes them feel even more behind and therefore more cautious about entering markets. I've also observed that having invested capital fundamentally changes your relationship with financial information and market dynamics. When all your savings sit in cash, you're essentially outside the system, checking account balances, but not really engaged with how economic and market forces actually operate. When you have allocated capital, you pay attention differently. You learn about business cycles, valuation metrics, sector rotation, global macro dynamics. This education itself becomes valuable. You develop genuine financial literacy and understanding that serves you throughout your life. The revelation here is that real financial security doesn't come from holding large cash balances that feel safe. It comes from owning productive assets that participate in economic growth, from having capital positioned to benefit from long-term compounding, and from developing the psychological capacity to maintain positions through normal market volatility. The discomfort you feel when considering moving excess savings into investments isn't a warning sign that you're being reckless. It's often a sign that you're finally confronting the real choice between false safety and genuine wealth building. This doesn't mean you should invest money you might need in 6 months or that you should put everything into a single speculative position. It means recognizing that if you have savings beyond your legitimate short-term liquidity needs, keeping that capital in cash is a decision to accept certain purchasing power loss rather than participating in the wealth creation that happens through ownership of productive assets. Once you see this choice clearly, holding excess cash stops feeling safe and starts feeling like the actual risk it is. The fourth problem with pure saving strategies is that they reflect and reinforce a fundamentally defensive mindset that prevents wealth accumulation. When your entire financial strategy centers on saving and preserving what you have, you're operating from a framework of scarcity and fear rather than opportunity and growth. This psychological orientation has costs that extend far beyond the direct financial impact of holding cash. People who focus exclusively on saving tend to optimize every financial decision around avoiding loss rather than capturing opportunity. They agonize over small expenses. They avoid calculated risks that could substantially improve their situation. They stay in jobs or situations that feel safe, even when those situations limit their earning potential and growth. The same defensive mindset that keeps their savings in cash keeps them from making career moves, starting businesses, or investing in their own skills and capabilities. I've observed this pattern countless times. Someone in their 20s or 30s is earning decent income and saving diligently, but they're so focused on preservation that they never take any of the calculated risk that could dramatically improve their trajectory. They don't invest in additional education or skill development because they don't want to spend savings. They don't start a side business because they're afraid of losing their initial capital. They don't make career changes that could increase their income because they prioritize stability over growth. The result is that 10 years later, they have modest savings earning nothing, but their income hasn't grown meaningfully, and they've made no progress toward financial independence. Contrast this with people who understand that capital is meant to be deployed, that wealth building requires accepting calculated risks, and that the biggest risk is often taking no risk at all. These people invest in themselves in education, skills, businesses, and capabilities that increase their earning power. They put capital into assets that can appreciate. They're willing to accept short-term uncertainty in exchange for long-term opportunity. And overwhelmingly, these are the people who build substantial wealth, not because they're smarter or luckier, but because they operate from a framework of opportunity rather than pure defense. Here's a reflexive dynamic that's crucial to understand. Success builds on itself. When you take intelligent risks and they work out, you gain confidence and experience that makes you better at evaluating future opportunities. You develop skills and knowledge that have compounding value. You build networks and relationships that create additional opportunities. Meanwhile, pure savers who avoid all risk never develop these capabilities. They remain perpetually cautious, perpetually defensive, perpetually waiting for absolute certainty that never comes. Their lack of experience makes them even more risk-averse, which creates more lack of experience, which perpetuates the cycle. I'm not suggesting recklessness. I've made plenty of mistakes in my career, some quite costly, but I learned from those mistakes in ways that made me a better investor and thinker. The person who never takes intelligent risks and never makes mistakes also never learns, never develops judgment, and never builds the psychological resilience required to build and maintain wealth through different market environments. Think about what you're actually optimizing for with a pure saving strategy. You're optimizing to feel safe today, to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty, to maintain the illusion of control over your financial situation. But you're sacrificing the actual growth and development that creates genuine security and opportunity over time. You're trading long-term wealth building for short-term emotional comfort, and the cost of that trade becomes clear only years later when you realize how far behind you've fallen. Here's the reframing that matters. Real financial security doesn't come from minimizing all risk and holding large cash balances. It comes from developing the capabilities to evaluate opportunities, to take calculated risks, to maintain positions through uncertainty, and to learn from both successes and failures. These capabilities have compounding value that far exceeds any amount you might save in cash. They're what separate people who build substantial wealth from people who spend their entire lives feeling anxious about money despite saving diligently. The challenge is to recognize that your financial strategy should reflect an offensive mindset focused on growth and opportunity, not a purely defensive mindset focused on preservation and loss avoidance. This doesn't mean being careless or reckless. It means accepting that wealth building requires putting capital at risk in intelligent ways, that the discomfort of uncertainty is the price of participation in wealth creation, and that optimizing purely for safety guarantees mediocre results at best. I've shown you 4 fundamental problems with pure saving strategies. The systematic purchasing power erosion that makes you poorer in real terms, the linear growth that prevents you from benefiting from compounding, the lack of access to asymmetric opportunities that invested capital provides, and the defensive mindset that prevents wealth building beyond just the direct financial costs. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or early 40s with savings under $50,000 and your primary financial strategy is accumulating cash in savings accounts, you're very likely making yourself poorer over time while feeling like you're being responsible. The nominal account balance may grow, but your actual purchasing power and your progress toward financial independence are stagnating or declining. Meanwhile, people who understand that capital needs to be allocated into productive assets are compounding their wealth and pulling further ahead with each passing year. You now face a clear choice. You can continue with the conventional wisdom that saving in cash represents security, that avoiding investment risk is prudent, that the right time to invest will eventually arrive when you feel more certain. This approach feels safe. It's what most people do. It's what you've probably been taught to do. But it systematically prevents wealth accumulation and almost guarantees that you'll reach middle age without having made meaningful financial progress despite years of disciplined saving. Or you can adopt a different framework. You can recognize that cash beyond short-term liquidity needs is capital that should be working for you, that holding excess cash is an active decision to accept certain purchasing power loss, that real wealth building happens through ownership of productive assets that participate in economic growth. You can accept that investment involves uncertainty, but that this uncertainty is not the same as recklessness. It's the necessary price of participating in wealth creation over time. This isn't about abandoning all caution or making speculative bets with money you need next month. It's about understanding the difference between legitimate short-term liquidity needs and long-term wealth-building capital and allocating each appropriately. It's about recognizing that the years you spend holding excess cash are years of compounding you can never recover, that time is your most valuable resource for wealth building, and that preserving the appearance of safety through large cash balances often means sacrificing the substance of actual financial progress. The mathematics of compounding are unforgiving. Every year you delay moving excess savings into productive investments is a year of returns, and compounding you lose permanently. If you're 25 with $10,000 in excess savings earning nothing, and you wait until 35 to invest that capital, you've lost 10 years of compounding at 8% average returns. That's the difference between that 10,000 growing to about 22,000 versus growing to about 47,000 by the time you're 55. You didn't become more cautious or more prudent by waiting. You just made yourself materially poorer by not understanding how capital works. I built substantial wealth not by being the smartest person in markets or by having perfect information, but by understanding that capital needs to be deployed, that wealth building requires accepting calculated risks rather than avoiding all uncertainty, and that the feeling of safety from holding cash is often an illusion that prevents genuine financial progress. These aren't complex insights or sophisticated strategies. They're basic realities about how wealth gets created in market economies. But most people never internalize them because conventional wisdom and their own fear push them toward pure saving strategies that feel responsible but produce mediocre results. Your financial future depends on whether you're willing to question the conventional wisdom around saving, whether you can distinguish between real security and the false comfort of large cash balances, and whether you're prepared to accept that wealth building requires putting capital at risk in intelligent ways. The choice between defensive saving and intelligent allocation is the choice between stagnation and growth, between feeling safe while falling behind and accepting discomfort while building genuine financial independence. The conventional saving strategies are everywhere, in financial advice columns, in what your parents taught you, in what feels emotionally comfortable. But they lead to predictable results. Modest nominal savings that lose purchasing power over time, decades of work with little wealth accumulation to show for it, and the realization in middle age that you've spent your entire adult life being financially responsible according to conventional metrics while making no real progress toward financial independence. The alternative is there. It requires confronting the discomfort of uncertainty, accepting that intelligent risk-taking is necessary for wealth building, and recognizing that real financial security comes from owning productive assets and developing capabilities, not from holding large cash balances. The difference between these paths becomes clear only after years have passed and compounding has done its work. But by then, the opportunity to make different choices with your early earning years is gone forever. The cash is sitting there in your savings account, losing purchasing power month by month while you tell yourself you're being prudent. The question is whether you're willing to see that for what it actually is, not security, but the systematic erosion of your potential for wealth building, and make different choices while you still have time and compounding working in your favor,